All right, welcome into Sports Bit Betting Insight today. Weekend preview. It is Friday. Paulie and Teddy, big game breakdown. 4 big games. We'll get to the Cavs and the Celtics and Duke and Carolina. Deep dive, how to bet conference tournaments and championship week. We always start with a fresh take or a rant. And I've been in the media for 15 years. This is the dumbest story I can remember with Tom Brady. A horrible day for Brady in court. One guy who covers the Patriots as a beat writer said, you better hold on to Garoppolo because you're going to need him. A rough day. How about this? As the judges were all over Kessler and Brady's team of lawyers. How about this? Maybe he got rid of the cell phone because he's got 6, 7 women on the side. He doesn't want to get divorced because his wife makes $50 million. You ever think about that? Jesus, man.
That's a maybe there. You know, that's absolute speculation, Paul. The bottom line is, yeah, he had a bad day in court, but you know what? If he loses this one, there'll be another appeal. And he'll be retired by the time that this case gets settled. I think it's freaking hilarious. You know what I mean? I mean, look, I went to Michigan. I've always been a Brady fan on the one level. On the other level, it's fun to hate dynasties. You have to hate the dynasties. And the Patriots have been that type of dynasty that's so easy to hate because they've cheated the whole way through it. You know, of course, not so fun to hate those dynasties with your bankroll. But certainly as a fan, whatever fandom I have in me, you know, it's not like I'm excited when the Patriots win a Super Bowl. But it's also annoying, Paul, because now the Pats season win total gets taken off the board. We don't know if Brady's going to be missing 4 games or not. And the same thing happened last year. It took months for them to put it back up. It was all of preseason. They were adjusting the week 1 lines based on whether they thought the suspension was going to be upheld or not. And it was insanity for the Patriots for season wins and season-long betting numbers, which is never good news for us.
Asinine. By the time this is all said and done, it could be over 2 years, and the NFL has spent over $20 million. Give me a break. What's the advantage? His numbers are better on the road anyways.
But, I mean, you said you've been doing radio for 15 years.
Yes.
And this is the single dumbest story? I mean, what's so dumb about it? You know, they cheated.
There's zero evidence. There's zero evidence.
They measured the ball. Didn't they stick one of those needles into the measure? It's just low? No.
What the hell are you talking about?
If there's no evidence, then why has he been suspended for 4 games? And why is the court
that's what I'm talking about.
Going to uphold that suspension?
They didn't know about the ideal gas law, and Walt Anderson didn't even know what gauge he used to measure the balls. They don't know what the hell they were doing.
Certainly, in a court of law, it would be difficult to convict him. No question.
All right, fair enough. All right, on to bad beats. Now, this is good. Well, it's not good, but at least fun to talk about. I got a push on this, and Teddy won. Missouri State. Oh, my God, against Drake. They're up 10 at the half, 2 or 2.5. Depends when you got it. Went off at 2.5. Explain what the hell happened at the end of the game.
Well, there were threes out there. And look,
okay.
I mean, Drake made a couple of runs in the second half. They tied it up at 50. Missouri State kept on just inching ahead. You know, the final seconds, Drake gets to the free throw line, makes one, misses one. So the lead's down to 2. Then Missouri State goes to the free throw line. Chris Kendricks, 82% from the charity stripe for the season. 6 of 7 on the night. Here it is. You're up 2. All you need is, you got to hit both these to make it count and ensure the victory. You have to hit one of them to cover the point spread. Chris Kendricks, clunk, clunk. 0 for 2. Brutal if you had Missouri State minus. They were the right side. They did not come away with the right result.
Plenty of wrong sides. How about the Mavs? Sacramento exercises the demons. They go into Dallas and win. They had lost 22 in a row in Dallas. The last time they won, the starters were Bibby, Peja, Vlade, and Weber, and that crew. How about that?
Yeah, Doug Christie. Don't forget Doug Christie.
Don't forget about Doug, yes.
Yeah, 22 straight losses in Dallas. And boy, they tried to give this one away tonight. You want to talk missed free throw? I think it was Bellinelli missed a couple of free throws there when they were up 3. And the rebound got kicked around, and Sacramento ended up getting the offensive rebound, which saved them because you know how many times Dallas, and we talked about it on the show early in the week and last week, all these wins that the Mavs have had in overtime at home. If you were Sacramento, you did not want that game to go into OT.
Suns get blown out again on the road. They've lost 17 in a row on the road and 12 in a row by double digits. The Heat got there.
Yeah, and we talked about this on yesterday's show as well. they'll talk about how, hey, look, Miami's not a team that can win games by margins. They just shot the best the best shooting night that they've had that any team in the NBA has had all year. Might not be the best spot to lay it with the Heat. Didn't matter. Phoenix, a bad bet again tonight. This team is not just bad. They are abysmal on the highway. Not a sniff of competitiveness when it comes. I mean, competitiveness is not the right word. It's reaction to adversity. There are teams that can take a punch and punch back, and there are teams that can. Boy, Phoenix on the road. I mean, you make a little run on them, and then it's all over.
How about Connecticut and our best bet, Arizona? Cal looked like the better team in that one.
Yeah, they did, and I know Zona came away with the win. York got hot in the last minute and kind of saved Arizona from losing that game outright at home. But I'll tell you what, the more, I don't think this is one of Sean Miller's better versions, and I honestly think Cal's a more dangerous team in March. I really do. When you talk about UConn, I mean, they're playing their way out of the tournament right now. 3 losses their last 4 games, and these were games that at least one of them they had to have. Now the committee has an excuse to keep UConn out, so they'll be one of those teams that's really rooting for no upsets when it comes to some of the bigger conference tournaments next week.
Total's really slowing down in the NBA. Wednesday, 8-3 to the under. 11 games fell under the under. 100 games.
114 points.
Below projections.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Jesus.
Yeah.
Thursday, prior to the Golden State game, 3-0 to the under by 55.5 points. So you're seeing the 2-day total, 11-3 to the under by 169.5 points. So the early burst after the All-Star break has this regress now, what's gone in the last couple days.
And of course, the Oklahoma City Golden State game closes 230, 232. I mean, and of course they finished with 227. So that one stayed under as well. Now 12-3 to the under over the last 2 days. And if you want to talk the poster child for unders right now, that'd be San Antonio. You heard Greg Popovich say it in the interview yesterday. Hey, what'd you do good in the third quarter? Defense. What's good about our defense? They were aggressive. Pop hates doing those in-quarter interviews. But the Spurs now allowed 16 and 18 in the fourth quarter over the last 2 nights. And both of those games stay way under the total.
Thanks for the assist. Couldn't even read my handwriting. Jesus Christ.
Hey, we all do it, man. I've been there plenty of time. Believe me, if I got ripped for every mistake that I ever said or made, we're doing between 20 and 25 minutes of live, live audio and video. There's a lot of material that we cover, and we're human. We're not going to get everything right every time.
Coming up, big game breakdown. 4 huge games. We'll get to the Cavs and the Celtics. Another game in the association, and of course, North Carolina and Duke. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Welcome back to SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Paulie and Teddy. Time for big game breakdown. One game will go. One of the 4 is Friday. Pacers, Hornets. 3. Hornets laying 3. 199.5. Atlanta, Indiana, Charlotte within a game of each other for the 5 seed and sniffing that 4 seed. They're getting close, and that means home court. KEMBA, though, starting to take off here with the group and the team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Kemba Walker, he's a March guy. You remember him getting unbelievably hot in March just a few years ago when he led UConn to the Big East tournament title and then a NCAA tournament title. And it was all Kemba Walker on that team. And here they are in March, and they're hot again. Now, much of this came from February, but 10-3 straight up, 9-4 against the spread since that long West Coast trip ended in late January. And, of course, a Charlotte team that is healthy now. Depth, a positive sign for them for the first time in ages. Al Jefferson, Frank Kaminsky, Jeremy Lin, Jeremy Lamb, all contributing good minutes. Now, they've beaten Indiana twice already. They were plus 3.5, and they won by, 22 at Indiana the last game before the All-Star break. And they won straight up at Indiana also as underdogs just last week. And, a lot of teams have been winning at Indiana of late. Pacers really struggling in their end game. And this is a squad, they haven't won a game by double digits since February 3rd at Brooklyn. Indiana, even when they win, they're not winning by big margins. And right now, Charlotte of these 2 teams is definitely playing the better basketball.
These next 3 games are all on Saturday. Projected line, Cleveland and Boston. Cavs 6, 209.5. The Celtics won in Cleveland, 104-103, getting 7, February 5th. Stevens undressed Lou, especially at the end game, outcoached him big time. And Teddy, we love the Celtics, we love Stevens. No intimidation here. They are not afraid of this Cleveland team.
No, they're not. I mean, you mentioned, they won in Cleveland just a few weeks ago. Was able to cash a ticket in that ballgame. I mean, it was kind of a BS straight up win. The point spread cover was pretty clear for Boston in that ballgame, but they stole that one at the end with a 3-pointer at the buzzer from Avery Bradley, and it's a kind of loss that I would think Cleveland's likely to remember. And you say that Boston's not intimidated. Well, the Cavs aren't intimidated on this floor either. Boston won 3 times straight up. The Cavs won 3 times straight up in Boston last year, including twice in the playoffs. I mean, the loss was a doozy. It was 117-78. But there was no LeBron or Kyrie or J.R. Smith in that game. The Cavs were resting starters for the playoffs. And the Cavs also won here 89-77 as 1-point faves back in December. That was a game in which Boston shot 32% from the floor. So while I like the Celtics in a series against Cleveland, and I think they'd be live dogs in that series, I think we'd make money with Boston in that series. And I'm really looking forward to that series in the Eastern Conference Finals because it gives us a chance to do whatever we want with our Celtics future bet. But for the purpose of this particular matchup, I'm not in love with the Celtics as well as they've been playing of late. She's probably not a game I'm going to get involved with.
College now, Louisville at Virginia. Projected line, Virginia 5.5, 123. Louisville's off the senior night and no postseason because of the sanctions, and that was a listless performance. They only beat Georgia Tech by 3. What am I going to get out of them here against a good Virginia team?
Yeah, and that's a real good question. I mean, think about what happened in the first meeting. Virginia plus 5.5 at Louisville. They win that game 63-47. It was 29-14 at halftime. They coasted. The pack line defense absolutely worked in that ballgame. Louisville, 18 turnovers, only 16 field goals. And of course, for senior night, you got Anthony Gill and Malcolm Brogdon, not just seniors, fifth year the seniors for Arizona. And with Louisville right now, we got to ask a legitimate question right now. Is this going to be the last time we see Rick Pitino coach the Louisville Cardinals? What do you say, Paul?
I think it is. And an interesting quote out of Pitino: I am mentally and emotionally fatigued. Maybe Louisville's better off without me. And I don't know about the UNLV rumors here in Vegas because I think that conference is too Mickey Mouse. But it reminds me of the old De Niro line in the movie Casino. Either you're incompetent or you're in on it. You don't know they're running hookers in and out of there? So understand he's one of the best coaches ever, but there's some risk there. And I think this is his final game in Louisville, but I don't have any idea because there's baggage there. Certainly got to spend some money, but there's baggage. I don't know where he'll wind up. And now I don't know what his plans are going to be after this game.
Well, you know what he's going to do after this game? He's going to go off to Indy and watch his son coach in the Big Ten tournament.
Better get there fast. They'll be out in the first round.
Yeah, that's the truth, isn't it, though?
Oh, man. Do you think he's done?
I would not be surprised. Right now, I would make the betting favorite to be that this is Pitino's last game as Louisville head coach. I don't think I'd make it minus $2, but I would definitely make it the chalk.
Could he go back to the NBA, or is there too much baggage for that, too?
Yeah, you could go back to the NBA. Of course you could.
Yeah, that could happen. The big one, UNC and Duke. Projected line, pick 158.5. Teddy, these two teams get after each other. They can't stand one another.
They sure can, And again, remember what happened in that first meeting. North Carolina appears to be comfortably in control. Duke is supposed to wear down late because they have no depth. And what happens? Duke plus 8.5. They ended up winning the game outright. 74-73. And remember all the Tar Heel money that came that day? North Carolina won the boards by plus 15 in that ballgame. Duke got only 9 minutes from Matt Jones in that ballgame. But the North Carolina guards and the North Carolina three-point shooting, Polly, neither one of them was very good.
Yeah, we've talked about all week, especially Marcus Page. He's knocking down shots, and he's a liability out there if he can't make shots. And I'll tell you another thing. Get the ball down to Johnson and the bigs. And if they don't feed the big man, call a timeout and take their ass out of the game because it's unacceptable and inexcusable. The depth issues, plus the bigs destroyed them, and then they went, 5-10 minutes without touches. That cannot happen in this one. It's a smoke and mirror job out of the Dukies with all their injuries. Carolina's the better team. Feed the big man down low, and the guards have to produce, not only shooting the ball, but getting the big guys involved. And Roy Williams has got to do a better job coaching in this one, too. You like that?
Tell me how you really feel, Paul. But obviously, you look at the two graphs we've got here. The 3-point shooting in the first meeting. Duke hitting 3-pointers. The Tar Heels just 1 of 13 from beyond the arc. You look at the guards in the first meeting for North Carolina. Marcus Page and Barry combined for 4 of 22 from the floor, 1 of 9 from 3-point range. If that duo can do better, North Carolina's supposed to win this ballgame. And I'll tell you what, you look at the recent series history between these two teams. When one team wins the first meeting, you don't necessarily want to be betting on that team in the second meeting, regardless of the point spread.
Carolina playing for a 1 seed too, so they got to have this one. Huge game. Coming up next, deep dive topic of the day. How to bet championship week in these conference tourneys and a play of the day. That's coming up on SportsBit. Betting Insight today. Time for the deep dive and topic of the day. How to bet championship week and conference tournaments, Teddy. A lot of people think this is just going to be great. It's wall-to-wall action. And a lot of people think that championship week is actually better than the actual tournament itself.
It is. From a betting perspective, it is. You're going to get more games in one day on championship week than when you will for the entirety of March Madness. And when it comes to games where you look at this point where you say, wow, I'm getting real value here. For the big dance, geez, if you find a handful, over the course of the big dance, you're happy. You find them seemingly every day in conference tournaments, but it's key to break it down. What are the things that we're looking for? It's not just random, and it's not just power ratings.
Okay, number 1, underdogs. Teams that fall behind. And you're not talking about NIT or CBI. Season's over. Nothing more to play for. They fall behind early. They're down big. They pack it in. That's it. Watch out for that. Be careful. Because why are they going to go out there? This is their final game. Collect the jerseys. Let's start vacation. I don't have to put the work in anymore. Be careful for that one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Certainly the dogs that are going nowhere are teams that, the 10 and 19 squads of the world, not easy takes in the conference tournament in their opener. If they get a win under their belt, it can be a different story. If they're a team with talent that just kind of faded throughout the course of the season and now has new life, those are teams that you may want to consider. But for a lot of these teams, you're 10 and 19, your season sucked. Thank God it's over. It's not, we're down by 14 in the second half. We're going to scratch and claw and fight back into this game. You get it sometimes, but that's the exception more than the rule.
On the flip side, then you have the favorites who, listen, the goal is to survive and advance, and a lot of times you're playing 3 games in 3 days or 3 games in 4 days. So to go out there and to step on somebody and blow them out by 20, that's not the goal. The goal is to win and be fresh for the next game.
Well, that means that a lot of times you're looking at big chalk to go under the total. If you like a team minus 20, you, in theory, or minus 15 or so whatever, and when you talk about your bigger favorites, those are the games they're supposed to control. They're supposed to be able to control pace. And throughout the second half of those contests, they're rarely looking to push pace. So you may look for some big chalk games to go under the total. And in particular, if they're up by 20 at the half, those are games where the under is likely to get a lot of sharp action. You may want to bet those real early.
Okay, and now when you talk about the craziness of the endgame scramble and what could happen, the first tournament with the new 30-second shot clock.
What's going to happen is going to make the endgame scrambles bigger, and longer. And, of course, that, in theory, could send games that are dead nuts unders and send them flying over the total, Paul. That's very realistic. But, let me talk about some of the primary factors that I like to consider in conference tournament weeks, and especially when you're talking about not the first game, but when you get into the second game and the third game of these, 2 games in 2 days, 3 games in 3 days, and sometimes even 4 games in 4 days and 5 in 5 days, though that's, very rare. But I'm always looking at depth. You want, as you get into, as these conference tournaments that continue in advance, 10 deep trumps 6 deep, plain and simple. I don't want teams that are alive based on fluky three-point shooting. If you just won hitting 15 to 27 from three-point range, it's really hard to do that again the next night. And of course, as we talked about earlier in the show, Paul, if you can't hit free throws at the end, you can't be trusted as a neutral court favorite. So those are 3 factors that I tend to look at on a pretty regular basis when it comes to conference tournaments. But of course, such a huge difference between the games this weekend and next weekend. This weekend, we're talking about one bid conferences. Teams are going to fight, and everybody wants to play. When you talk about the bigger conference tourneys next weekend, Paulie, the motivation isn't quite always as easy to understand for some of the top seeds.
Right, and you said earlier in the week Oklahoma should tank and get the rest and get out of there in the Big 12 tournament. So some of these major power conferences, you're talking about 6, 7 bids going out to that league. So next week we'll talk about the big boys and the larger conferences with a different type of motivation. Okay, time for money time. Play of the day. What do we have?
Well, Paul, let's be straight, man. We haven't won all week. Let's get it going, and with getting it going tonight, that means the gift that keeps on giving. What's the gift that keeps on giving? The Phoenix Suns on the road. We talked about the Suns earlier in the show. We talked about them yesterday. We talked about them last week. What do we have now? 12 straight losses by double digits. And of course, this is the last game before heading to the West Coast for Orlando. Maybe you can expect the Magic to come together and take this game seriously. It is a Magic spot, and the Suns are absolutely a team I want to be fading at every reasonable opportunity on the highway. Let's take Orlando minus the 13 in NBA action tonight.
Very good, very good. That wraps up the weekend preview. Have a good weekend out there. We'll be back Monday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.